Welcome to Urbanite Farms. This is tour number 3, week 11, and I'm Carrie. Let me show you my garden. We're going to start off today with our melon raised box. We have honeydew melons all around the outside edge that we have trellised up, and they've started flowering this week. So as you can tell, we're going to have an abundance of melons. Don't have any melons showing up yet, but we definitely have lots of flowers. And we have lots of pollinators that I've been seeing this week too. So fingers crossed we're gonna have a bumper harvest. And if you look down the center of the box, we have cantaloupes growing. This is my first time growing melons, so I'm really excited to see how they do. One thing that you have to look for when you're growing melons and other types of vining fruit such as squash is these little bugs right here. These little guys are squash bugs, or stink bugs as you may know them, because they smell when you kill them. They give off a nasty stench. And if you see them in your garden, that's what you want to do, is kill them, because they multiply like crazy and they will kill your crop. Next, we're going to move along to something we planted recently, or some rows in between our boxes. They're struggling a little bit, but I think that they'll perk up pretty soon. We have some jalapeno peppers that we started from seed, along with some weeds. Ignore the weeds. And then we have onions companion planted in between them to help ward off pests. And we have that in between each one of the raised boxes as you go down. The next box you'll see is my cut flower box. I have zinnias planted in the first half, and then in the second half we have sunflowers. They're planted in different heights, so when you get to the back of the box, they're going to be 14 feet tall. Those are going to be some beautiful sunflowers. Then our next box we come to, we have our lilac bush, which usually only blooms in the early spring, but we cut this back and it's starting to have a second bloom. So that's pretty cool. I think maybe Nomeo has something to do with that. He's my garden watch gnome. I also have some flowers in this box. These are my perennials. So they're gonna come back each year, unlike my cut flowers, which are annuals, and you have to plant those annually. I've just put a lantana in here because my perennials are slow to be coming up. And then I also put a few marigolds in here because I had some extra ones we started from seed. And then again, we have another row of our jalapeno peppers. And I did try and plant some other companion seeds in between here. You see right here, I do need to get in here and weed, but this is a little radish coming up. And then I also have onions in between a few, but like I said, these are a little rough, so we'll give them some tender love and care as the weeks go on. This is really a spring box that I planted some carrots and some kale and different things in that just didn't do too good because we didn't get it in early enough. So we're gonna wait until probably late July, early September, and we'll plant some more cold weather crops as the summer starts to die off. It's just gonna be left blank until then, except for the horseradish that we have growing at the end, and we'll harvest the roots on that pretty soon. Then you come to the last box, and we had some extra peppers, as you can tell. We have lots of jalapeno peppers. My husband is a pepper lover. So I just planted these yesterday, and they look like they're taken pretty well. And then we have mint at the end of this box, which I need to try and keep it from taking over those peppers that we planted as the months go on. But I love this mint. It's wonderful. It smells great. You can use it to make teas. You can use it to keep the bugs off you in the garden. You can just kind of pick a couple of leaves. Here, I'll show you. Take a couple of leaves. You can look for maybe some damaged ones that you wouldn't use otherwise. You just kind of crumble them up in your hands like this. You can just kind of rub it on you, and things like mosquitoes and gnats and flies don't like that smell, and they'll stay off you while you're in the garden. You do have to reapply it, every 30 minutes or so if they start bothering you. Then these last couple of rows here on this end of the garden, we have our watermelon plants. Joe, my youngest, planted these. Got this one here, it's looking really nice and healthy. And then we have a couple more as you walk through. A couple of different varieties. I don't know off the top of my head what the varieties are, but we're gonna have some watermelons this year, so Joe's really excited about that. Then as we continue on down, we have some okra. The okra did not come up as we had hoped, so we only have, I think we have about 8 plants that came up, but we did reseed in between, so hopefully those will be coming up shortly and they'll be filling in the holes. But I don't think we're going to be short on okra. Each plant gives you a pretty good harvest, so we'll definitely have some to eat this year. And then the next 4 rows, you'll see we have corn coming up, and companion planted with the corn, we have beans. And these are pole beans. And what's really nice about pole beans is they will grow right up the stalk of the corn. So you don't even have to stake these beans. And if you notice the little flowers, they're starting to bud. So it won't be too long. Oh, we got a little bug in there. Not too long and we'll be having beans to harvest. Next, we have some sweet potatoes. And this row is in full sun, and it has just been going crazy over the last week or two. So not too much longer, and we'll probably be able to harvest a potato or two. And then we come to our first trellis row, and at this half of this row, we have eggplants. And the eggplants have started to set fruit this week. Got some beautiful flowers on these first few. And as you make your way down on the last 2 plants, we have a couple of fruits that are growing that are about 1 inch or 2 long. And as you walk through, you'll notice the beans. Now these are really, really cool beans. I've never grown them before, but they come highly recommended from a friend of mine, and they're called asparagus beans. And the beans themselves are about 12 to 18 inches long, so those are some long beans. And they're purple, so those are gonna be fun to cook. Now if you notice the jungle to my left, this is what I like to call my winter squash jungle. I've trained these winter squash to climb up this trellis. I just kind of come in here every day and intertwine. See if that guy will stay. Nope, this guy's not cooperating tonight, but they will climb up these if you train them. And then what you'll see is you get these lovely squash that you just attach with an old t-shirt or some pantyhose. I've been using sheets, ripping up sheets that we don't use anymore and hanging them up. This side we have acorn squash, and then if you follow down a little further here, on the other side of these archways we have our butternut squash. And you do the same thing with the butternut squash. You just tie them up. You want to give them a little bit of support so as the fruit ripens and gets heavy, it doesn't break off of the vine before it's ready to harvest. So that's why we want to tie those up. And we have some companion planting in between these as well. I have some beans sporadically put in between here, and they'll be climbing up along these trellises as well. Let's see. Then we also, on this side, we have trellises. These are a little bit different. These are cucumbers, and they don't need quite as much support. So we've got some trimmer cord that we've tied up in between some stakes here. And we've got a couple of different kinds of companion plants on this side as well. These are some marigolds that haven't bloomed yet. And then we have some radishes. These all help to keep squash bugs, cucumber beetles, and other bugs that you don't want near your cucumber plants. Oh, here's a beautiful radish. That one's about ready to pick. We might have to take that one in for dinner tonight. And then on each post, we have more pole beans. And these will just start to climb up these posts just like they do on the corn over there. This is also a row of cucumbers, but at the end we have some edamame beans. And as you can see, they are getting close to harvest. This is another new addition to the garden this year. I've never grown these before, but they are one of my favorite beans. So I can't wait to harvest those. Now this is one type of cucumber we have, and it grows long and slender and does not have the spikes on it that some of the cucumbers do. And it's pretty tasty. I haven't grown this one before, but we've been harvesting a few of them here and there, and they're pretty good. I don't recall the name of it though. And then these are the store-bought. I believe that these are burpless cucumbers, and they have the little spikies on there, so you have to wear gloves when you harvest those and rub those spikes off before you slice them and eat them. The next 3 rows, you will see lots and lots of onions, but among the onions, we have other things planted. I seeded some new squash. These are summer squash, which means that they are a bush. So unlike the squash on the trellis over there that I was just showing you, these don't need any type of support. They just kind of bush out, and then the fruit will be at the base of the plant. And these specific summer squash are a little white saucer, and they're pretty yummy. But those are just coming up, so we've been succession planting squash so that we'll have it all summer. And there's a nice red onion coming out of the ground there. Oh, those are going to be good. And then we come to the peppers that we bought at the beginning of the season because we wanted to have some early peppers. Those are some jalapenos right there. We've got parsley planted in between the peppers because that will, like the onions, help keep the bugs away. And as you walk down a little further, we have a few different types of peppers that aren't producing yet, but they will definitely be producing soon. And I found these little beauties not too long ago. These are some reapers. Those are very, very hot peppers that my husband is going to make some wonderful sauces and pickle, probably some olive oil infused. I'm not sure, but we'll get some really cool things out of those peppers. Now here's some more of my squash. I do have, this one here is a yellow crooked neck squash. This poor little guy, this corner spot has been taken out like 3 times. So this is my 3rd time. It's a charm, so he's gonna grow. And then as you go down, we have some more winter squash. This guy's summer squash. He doesn't really climb, but I put it there anyway because it was the best thing to put on the corner. And then as you go down, we've got some more winter squash that are gonna climb up this trellis. Again, I believe they're acorn and butternut, just like on the other side. And then we have tomatoes. Tomatoes, my favorite part of the garden. We have a wonderful variety of tomatoes going down this row, and everything is producing beautifully. We've got some cherries there. I believe that's a 100 sweet plant. And then that looks like it is a beefsteak. And then over here, this one is, not sure what that one is. Oh, these are grape. These are grapes here, and those another 100 sweet. That looks like another large variety, like a beefsteak. They're all producing beautifully. A little trick that I learned when you're growing tomatoes is that tomato flowers have both male and female parts inside of them. And so if you take your tomato plant and you just give it a little shake like this, you see how those flowers are vibrating? Well, the little male part up inside of there has the pollen on it, and it vibrates when bees or other pollinators get inside of there, and it vibrates that pollen down to the female parts, and that's how the tomato is germinated and formed. So if you come along and do this to your tomato plants every day, you will have almost 100% germination. I mean, you see these rows of tomatoes on here, almost every single one of those is germinated. And that's because I have been coming out here every day and tapping on the plants and getting the flowers to self-germinate. You can do this with peppers also. Peppers also have both male and female parts in them. Now I don't know if you notice, my tomatoes have a few aphids on them, but luckily we have lots of ladybugs in the garden this year, and they have done a fantastic job of taking care of the aphids. You saw the eggplants earlier, and they were just covered in aphids. We thought that we were gonna have to spray them with something because we thought they were gonna take the plants out if we didn't. But I did a little research, and everything I read said just wait, just let the ladybugs do their thing. And they did, and now there's not any aphids at all on my eggplant, but they have moved to the tomato plants. And luckily the ladybugs followed. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of time, and those ladybugs are gonna take them out, I'm sure. Now you might notice in between the tomato plants, I have basil. I have sweet basil, and I have some purple basil, and I have some spicy basil. And that, again, that is to keep bugs away. Obviously not aphids, but other types of bugs that will help repel. And it also makes your tomatoes a little bit sweeter. It gives them a sweeter flavor. So you always want to plant basil with your tomatoes. Onions will also help ward off the bugs. Onions are great all throughout the garden, planted with most things. And so we have both the basil and the onions planted with the tomatoes this year. Now these last few tomatoes here, these guys are a sauce tomato that we bought. I've never grown these kind before, and I didn't realize that they are a determinate tomato. And what that means is that they produce a determined number of fruit, and then they're done. You pull them up, you take them out of the garden, you plant something else. All these other tomatoes that you see staked with the sticks that are growing to the sky, those are indeterminate tomatoes. They will grow and grow and grow and grow and produce an indeterminate number of tomatoes, which means a lot of tomatoes. So we prefer those, but we needed some sauce tomatoes, and these were the only ones we could find, so we have a few of those. And I've started some new tomatoes up at the house to replace these determinate tomatoes, probably in about another month or so, maybe the end of July, a little more than that. So Brassica family is your, let's see, your cabbages, your Brussels sprouts, your broccolis, things that like the cold weather. Well, we didn't get these in early enough, and they are probably not going to produce a whole lot for us, but that's okay. We do have some heads of cabbage that we're going to be able to harvest. They're just on some bigger plants. But first, I want to show you the zucchini that we have growing. These poor guys took a beating last week with all that rain that we got from Cristobal, but they've bounced back. I came in here and trimmed them out really nicely and made sure that the pollinators could get to all those beautiful flowers. And they have started producing, oh, here's a nice size one. They've started producing some nice zucchini for us. Now, a fun little fact about zucchini, unlike the tomatoes and the peppers, they have both male and female flowers. So the pollinators have to go to the male flowers and get the pollen on them, and then go to the female flowers to germinate and make a fruit. And if you notice, let's see, yeah, this is a male flower. Male flowers have a stalk and no fruit attached. But the female flowers actually have the fruit attached. And these male flowers, you can pick these when they're open in the morning or in the early afternoon, and you can take them up to the house and you can cook them. You can put them in a salad, you can fry them. They're actually pretty delicious. We tried them deep fried, and they taste like popcorn. So next, you'll see we have some catnip companion planted with the zucchini. That is to help ward off the squash bugs and attract our garden cat. No, I'm just kidding. We do have a garden cat though. Yeah, this is another catnip here. These you have to be careful with though, because they are from the mint family, and if you do not keep them trimmed up, they will kind of take over. So keep your eye on those if you plant those in your garden. Next, you're gonna see that we have some beautiful heads of cabbage. I think I'm going to be harvesting these in the next week or so, and we're going to start processing them because it is getting so hot. I don't want those to get ruined in the heat because they do not like the heat. And plus too, I have some little dill plants planted in between them to keep the bugs away, and they have just not really done too much. So I'm hoping that once I harvest those, that the dill is going to take off, because we need that dill for when we start pickling our cucumbers. And I mentioned before that we had some Brussels sprouts. These are the Brussels sprouts. Normally you would see little Brussels sprout balls forming right here where these little leaves are. But again, it's so warm that I just don't think they're gonna produce anything until it starts to cool off towards the end of the summer. But these will grow all year long, and they will get bigger and bigger as long as we give them plenty of water and take care of them, fertilize them, and then we'll get some Brussels sprouts. We also have radishes planted in between those. Those are to keep the bugs off the Brussels sprouts, and plus we'll get to harvest those soon. One cool thing about radishes is if you do not get to harvest them before they get woody, because sometimes the radishes will get kind of woody in the heat, just let them grow and they will bush out and start producing flowers. And those flowers will make little seed pods, kind of like a bean. And they're really, really yummy. You can put them on salads, you can stir fry them. So I may do that with some of my radishes I have growing. Next, this is our shade area, and we have our potatoes growing here. And as you can see, these potatoes have gone crazy. Just like the sweet potatoes at the other end of the garden, these are just booming out, going everywhere. We got vines everywhere. These first 3 rows here are white potatoes, and then we have 2 more rows of sweet potatoes over here. We should be harvesting some of these pretty soon. It takes about 10 to 12 weeks for potatoes to produce, and I'm going to start checking these this week and see if we have any tubers. But if not, that's okay. We'll just let them sit in the ground until they flower, because that's usually what you wait for, is a flower. But not all potato plants flower. A cool thing about potato plants, you can take a vine like this from a potato plant. See how it's kind of rooting in there? You can take this vine and you can cut it, put it in a little bit of water, let those roots grow quite a bit, and then you've got a new potato plant, new potato start that you can put. Once we pull up the lettuce down here, we can start 2 more rows of potatoes from those. So that is our garden tour for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, just leave me a comment below. And I hope your garden grows well and your family is blessed.